For this entire week, I've brought on 6 of the biggest names in the industry to run through a series of mock drafts from every single spot, 1 through 12, to get into their minds for draft strategies, player takes, and late round sleepers. Today, I will be drafting with Nick Ercolano, the man, the myth, the legend himself, founder of a small company you might have heard of called BDGE. Nick brought his A game to this video, and honestly, we could not have kicked off this series on more of a banger. So tuck your shirts in and let's get to the mock. All right, Nick, so we are starting off this 10-round half PPR 12-team mock draft. I drew the 103 spot, you've got the 106 spot, and as I feel like is the case with every single league out there, the 1 and 2 started with Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. So I feel like I've got a pretty, it's a relatively easy decision for me. I know you can go between Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua. You can maybe get JSN in there or CMC or somebody like that. But Jamar Chase is my wide receiver one. Just when he and Joe Burrow are healthy, they just do magical things together. So I feel like it's a relatively easy decision for me, even in a half PPR league, to just go with Jamar Chase and kick this off with a wide receiver start. So you're at the 106. I'm very interested to see where you're going to go because we were talking a little bit beforehand. I don't love the middle of the draft. You seem very okay with it. So I'm interested to see how you start out this build and then continue it out.
Yeah, well, based on our scoring settings where we're starting 2 wide receivers and it's half PPR, for me, this is an easy lean with Christian McCaffrey here at the 106. We saw JT go 1-5. Shout out to whoever's out there doing that this year. This made my pick a little bit easier. Had Christian McCaffrey come off the board there, then I wouldn't say begrudgingly. I think JSN is fine to have on your team, but in a 2 wide receiver build, I am looking to go at least like directionally in the hero RB type of draft strategy here. So I take Christian McCaffrey here. Kind of a no-brainer pick for me, in my opinion. I think like when you look at the Niners, sure, you could sit here and waste your time about, oh, he's going to get injured or the injury history. In the years he doesn't get injured, he's winning your league for you, as we've seen last year, as we've seen in many, many years. And it's one of those things where like the longer you've been in this industry and the longer you've been playing this game, if a player's not injured going into the year, I feel like it's kind of a fool's errand to try to predict them to get injured. Had the Niners given us any sort of like glimpse into, hey, we're looking to move on from McCaffrey, I'd be worried about his role a little bit. But they've done the opposite. They've added so little depth to that backfield that makes me feel like he's going to end up losing any sort of significant work. I think even if people want to continue to cite like, oh, his yards per carry look bad last year, I don't really think that's like a sticky stat year over year of like, oh, this guy's yards per carry, it was 4.1 last year. It could be 4.3 this year and everything looks a little bit better. I'm looking at the passing volume here. You have George Kittle coming off the Achilles. You have like all the pass catchers of yesteryear are gone in San Francisco. We have Mike Evans coming in, who I think is going to be a great downfield threat, but ultimately, like this offense is going to run through Christian McCaffrey, and I don't want to overthink that. They're a high-scoring offense. You have Kyle Shanahan's scheme. He knows how to use McCaffrey to perfection here, so just give me the RB1 in a really good offense, and I think I can move on with my day there.
Yeah, I felt like that's a pretty easy decision on my end. If I was in your spot, I mean, we're already seeing that Christian McCaffrey's doing his black magic voodoo stuff by having other 49ers players get hurt so that he could sustain his own ability. And I mean, adding Mike Evans and now Deebo Samuel certainly seems like more potential fodder for that witchcraft as well. So as long as, like you said, as long as CMC's healthy, dude's at least a top 3 running back, if not like a legitimate lapping the field type of league winning running back. So it's still a really easy decision for me with where you were at as well with CMC. So you're up at the 206 again. I feel like we've got a variety of players that have been taken since your pick with Christian McCaffrey. Brock Bowers went off the board as well. Bunch of the typical running backs, typical wide receivers. You're staring down the barrel of guys like Drake London, Trey McBride, AJ Brown, Kenneth Walker, Henry, Jeremiah Love, all those guys. So you've started off and you mentioned that you might go with at least a hero RB build. Are you going to go double hero RB, or are you looking at the wide receiver or tight end position?
I'm not looking at tight end right now. This is a little bit too early for me for Trey McBride in like a non-tight end premium format. I'm struggling a little bit between the receiver room here and then having a couple running backs that I still love in the middle of the second round here. So I actually think I'm going to double tap running back here and shoot for a guy. I think you're kind of splitting hairs between Kenneth Walker's upside and Derrick Henry just being the beast that he's always been. I'm a big fan of Kenneth. I think I'm going to take him here. He, gets signed with KC clearly to be the workhorse there. And I feel confident that this offense is primarily going to run through him. I think this is still a good offense that you want to be attached to. I think Andy Reid's going to find a lot of creative ways to get him involved. Even in the passing game, I think they'll use targets to him early in screen games. We saw how explosive he is as a runner, and that's something that the Chiefs have obviously just like so cleanly missed over the last like half decade. And I also think like something that's probably not necessarily talked about as much, but we're seeing this big swing and shift in just the way that the NFL defenses are playing the Mahomeses. And we saw it with, Miami specifically and how they took away the deep passes, right? And it led to kind of like the downfall of the Miami offense, not being able to sling it deep to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. They're playing these cover two shells. And we're seeing that against Kansas City to a high degree. And now we're seeing kind of like an infiltration of the workhorse and bell cow running back again. And I think KC's kind of picking up on that. And they want K-Dub to be that guy. That kind of contract just like does not come around all the time for running backs. And I think they're clearly trying to be like Mahomes coming back from the ACL. Walker's going to be a guy. You have an aging Kelsey. You have Xavier Worthy, who's like, he's a gadget guy right now. Rashee Rice is kind of like cosplaying as a wide receiver one. I think he'll be fine this year for fantasy. But ultimately, like Kenneth Walker is probably the weapon in this offense that I trust the most outside of just like Mahomes, just doing voodoo magic all year. So K-Dub, I love the upside here. I think he could lead the NFL in rushing this year.
He's definitely been a player that I've been warming up to a lot more. I was skeptical about, giving him a lot of the workload just because we hadn't seen him, be that type of running back in Seattle. And then whenever he kind of got there, we saw a couple of injuries throughout the years. And then obviously last year with the split with Charbonnet in the Kubiak system. But I mean, when Kenneth Walker's on. And I think that this is perfectly set up offensively for him to be, an RB1 for the first time in his career, I believe, if not, definitely a top 8 type of fantasy running back if he has that receiving upside and the touchdown upside and just the rushing explosiveness that we know he already inherently carries. So yeah, I think it's a really good pick.
It's just one of those situations where like NFL players' careers are not linear, especially running backs. They're typically tied to whatever situation they're in, right? Like your touchdown totals are going to be dictated by whether or not your offense is a high scoring offense. Again, your injuries, if he tweaks something mid-August, late August, I'm going to pull the reins back a little bit and be like, I'm hesitant about it. But I'm not going to try to predict Kenneth Walker to get hurt again because we see players have this sort of reputation all the time where the first couple of years they're in the league, they miss time. And then all of a sudden, the next 3 years, they play 17 full games and they're a workhorse and nobody has any sort of concern about them. And this could absolutely be the case with Kenneth Walker here. I don't think, to me, he doesn't feel necessarily like injury prone. He's a running back that touches the ball 20 times a game. He's likely to get hurt. But if he stays healthy, which again, I'm not going to try to predict guys to get hurt in the middle of the season, like this situation is just so juicy for him.
At the 210, I'm kind of upset that Josh Allen and Trey McBride went because it's making my decision a little bit more difficult. I would like to go a running back here, but given the fact that, we're at Derrick Henry, who I love, I like Josh Jacobs a lot too, and he probably wouldn't be down this far if he didn't have any of the off-the-field stuff that happened earlier in the summer. Kyron Williams is still there, who I also still really like this year, even though everybody, this is the time of year that everybody hates Kyron Williams.
Right.
And then it's just stupid in about 4 months. But Drake London is still there, and I'm a really, really big fan of Drake London. I actually feel like he's a tiered gap between him and A.J. Brown. And, you mentioned Rashee Rice a little bit with the Kenneth Walker edition. You saying he was cosplaying as a wide receiver one. Can't forget that he had that cleanup knee surgery, spent a month in jail. I don't know how quickly he's going to get back to, the weirdness of the route tree and the Mickey Mouse kind of offense that he has going on, especially if Kenneth Walker's taking stuff in the short range for pass catching as well. So I'm a little bit skeptical on Rashee Rice to where I think I'm going to take Drake London here. And I'm hoping that Derrick Henry makes it back to me as he just did. I would have been totally fine if I got Josh Jacobs there as well. But getting London and Derrick Henry, I think was definitely what I was ideally looking for. And I managed to get it.
Yeah. I mean, what a start from you there, getting Derrick Henry on the turnaround. So you have 2 legit wide receivers, of course, and then Derrick Henry to just kind of be the guy for you there. So that was beautifully done. I was trying to pull some stats up on Rashee Rice, and I was looking into it the other day, and I remember seeing just like an insanely high target share coming on screens, which is typically the case for a guy like him. Last year, among qualified receivers, which is like 77 qualified receivers account for this, he led the NFL in just the overall percentage of his targets that were screens. So over 35% of his overall targets were screen targets. 26 of his 77 targets were screen targets, which is just actually that might have hit the percentage I originally.
That is about a third, yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of the highest rates in the NFL last year, which again, like, yes, if you're going to try to continue to force that to be your offensive identity, but there can absolutely be this role where it just kind of trickles down to being not the case anymore. And then you're looking at a kind of like a tough wide receiver one that you forewent for a Drake London. So London and Walker were the two guys I was deciding between on my 2-7 pick. Now I'm kind of a little bit in no man's land here because I went running back heavy, and I can kind of keep drilling down on that strategy. We have the safe pick of Kyren Williams. I think Javonte Williams has a great floor as well here and going to be one of the more overthought running backs entering this year. I think in this type of format with half PPR, I can swing upside on Malik Neighbors, but I do think I've probably taken on enough risk already in my first two picks that I'm looking at other guys here, and maybe Malik falls to me in the fourth. I think I'm going to take T. Higgins here. Actually, I lied. I'm going to take Devonta Smith.
Oh. Hey, I thought you were going Devonta Smith. I know that you're a huge Devonta Smith fan this year.
Yeah, I actually didn't see him because he was kind of far down the ADP relative to T. Higgins. But yeah, Devonta's my guy. I just think he's like an actual wide receiver one in real life, like he could have been if A.J. Brown wasn't there, and now he gets the opportunity to do so. I'm also pretty high on Sean Mannion's new system for just like a huge bounce back when it comes to Philadelphia. So love Devonta as the one there. I think he's going to be moved around a lot more. I think them playing under center is going to help the entire offense a lot more. The O-line being healthy again, like, yeah, Jalen Hurts not a prolific passer by any means, but Devonta Smith should see an insanely high target share there without A.J. Brown.
I'm in complete agreement, and I'm glad that you're the one that made the pick and are saying all of that, because I feel like I've said that multiple times on this channel in just the past few weeks, and some people are just, still telling me that it's like, Devonta Smith is still too slim, too small. Jalen Hurts can't throw. How are we sure that Sean Mannion's offense is going to be significantly better or anything like that? And I'm just like, it all, I think, is just culminating into Devonta Smith being incredible this year because of what he's already done without A.J. Brown in a small sample size, but he already showed that he can do it. I mean, he's one of the best collegiate receivers of all time, literally won the Heisman just a few years ago. And I agree with you that Sean Mannion's offense is, I think, going to do incredible things for this Eagles offense, for Hurts, for Smith, for Saquon, for Mekhi Lemon, and maybe Dallas Goedert, maybe Eli Stowers as, the tight end. So I think that there's just a lot of juicy upside in this Philadelphia Eagles offense, and I'm glad that you made that pick at the 306 with Devonta Smith. I am curious, did you see that he had a hamstring injury? I don't know if it was today or yesterday, so I'm a little curious.
I saw that him and Mekhi Lemon are both sidelined, but apparently it's it's reported as not very serious at all. So this time in the summer, I'm not like overly concerned. I think if they had come out and said, "Oh, he's week to week," I'd be like, "All right," raises the eyes a little bit. If it happened in August, August like 20th or something like that, another one where I'd be like, this kind of stinks. But I think there's plenty of time. And Devonta's one of those guys where like I don't necessarily think he needs to be on the practice field all the time. Like he's such a seasoned veteran. He kind of play anywhere on the field, and it doesn't really matter what he's doing. I don't think he really needs the reps. So as long as the reports keep coming out like it's not serious, I'm not overly concerned with Devonta.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. You're building out a really strong team. You're kind of so far making me feel better about being in the middle because I haven't necessarily enjoyed it in the few mocks that I've already done. But I'm curious here at the 4-7 where you're going to finish this out. Are you going to go with another wide receiver? Tight end, is it still in play for you?
Yeah, so I would have loved like 5 of the 6 picks that went before me anywhere in this 4th round. Like I'm not overly high in Garrett Wilson, but getting him as a wide receiver 2 would have been nice. I'm a huge fan of both Scatabo and Javonta. Abuka and Lad McConkey would have loved as my wide receiver 2s. Now I feel like I'm in like a weird spot because everyone loves Zay Flowers and I like him, but I don't really see like a super high ceiling for him. Like he's a dude who's gotten 110 115 targets year after year after year, and I think people love to be like positive touchdown regression is coming, and I'm just like, maybe just use common sense. When they're inside the 10-yard line, they just give it to Derrick Henry every single play. Like Zay Flowers does not get plays drawn up for him inside the 10-yard line. So yeah, if you want to try to like predict that he's gonna have a bunch of 40-yard touchdowns, cool. But I think we've probably seen what Zay Flowers is, which is like a rock solid, wide receiver 2. He's not going to get a ton of volume because that's just the type of offense that they have there in Baltimore. So I get a little bit worried about him. He's a high floor player. Luther Burden, I mean, the hype is out of control. So I'm kind of like, do I want to miss that boat when everyone's yelling about how amazing the cruise ship is there? I like Loveland as well, but I do think the value at tight end is just kind of deep this year into the 5th, 6th, 7th round. So I don't know that I need to like force that pick. Ultimately, I probably go wide receiver here. I like the tiers much more than I like the tier of running backs here. So it's kind of pick your poison. Do you want to take an upside shot on Luther Burden? Do you want the floor of Zay Flowers? Again, I think I'm probably more so looking for safe play and floor play. And I think I will get that with Devonta and Zay Flowers. I kind of have the upside shots on my running back. So I'll go Zay here.
I like Zay a lot. I think when you're talking about, I don't think anybody's going to be this year's Jackson Smith and Jigba, like, so to speak, of what he did last year. It was a magical season. But if you're trying to find that type of upside of where JSN was as a 3rd round pick last year, I think it could be Ladd. I think it could be Devonta Smith. And I think Zay Flowers could be in that discussion given the new offense that we have in Baltimore. And, one of the things that would help with positive touchdown regression would be if they get him involved more inside the red zone. And I'm not saying that it's unlikely, but it could be possible if they do get him more involved, especially because Andrews is getting up there in age. We don't have any solidified other target competition with Elijah Surratt and Jacoby Lane as rookies, and Bateman is just still kind of there. So I'm hoping.
It's just like where do the additional like for Zay Flowers to take the jump up that JSN did? Like where do the additional targets come from? Because it's like with JSN, you got AJ Brown DK Metcalf out of the way. Obviously Lockett was past his prime, but he's also no longer there. So it was kind of obvious to see where the targets were coming from. And I'm with you on like Devonta Smith being that guy, Ladd being that guy, because you have Keenan gone, and with Devonta you got AJ Brown gone. Zay, I just like can he jump from 115, 118 up to like 130? Yeah. But like, I don't know. I don't see enough passing volume there to like get him to that elite tier.
Do you think that Declan Doyle makes them pass more? Like how we're expecting like Mannion to maybe increase the pass rate that we've never really seen in Philly, or at least compared to the past couple of years with, Hurts and Saquon. I'm wondering if we could see that same thing with Doyle's offense, to where the passing rate and the volume just goes up, to where that's how you get Flowers to go from 115 to 130. Like you said, that could just happen by natural wide receiver 1 increase. But then could we get him to 145 if they throw 30, 40, 50 extra times this year?
Yeah, I mean, with Mannion and Philly, I'm not even expecting a jump in pass rate. I'm just expecting the target share for Devonta Smith to jump up from, 22, 23, 24 up to like 27, 28, 29. Whereas with Zay, it's like, I just, I don't see the passing volume going too far up. I am like definitely cautiously optimistic about Declan Doyle coming over, but he is coming over for Ben Johnson. And like, as fun as Ben Johnson's passing offenses have been, I do think he's like a run first guy. Like I think in Chicago last year, that was clear between Swift and Kyle Monangai, and they will continue to adapt, obviously, but I don't know. I just imagine that this is still going to run through Derrick Henry. And listen, I took Zay Flowers, so like obviously I'm not like against him here, but I do have a little bit of a tough time like getting on board that okay, Zay Flowers could be like the next guy up in fantasy football.
Right. And I also took Derrick Henry, so clearly I believe that the offense is still going to flow through him. So.
We're arguing against nobody for nothing.
Exactly. But Flowers doesn't need to do much more than what he already has been for the past couple of years to pay off at that ADP that you just took him as your wide receiver too. So still a very, very good pick. Now here, I'm looking at a very easy pick for me because I've been propping him up kind of over the past couple of weeks. Dynasty buy, redraft buy. Bucky Irving, I think, is still clearly the best running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when healthy. I've even saw a little, beat report saying that, Kenneth Gainwell hasn't been doing all that much in terms of running the actual ball. They see him as more of a safety outlet for Baker. Basically, like what I've been thinking of, he's going to play the Rachaad White role, which was still very heavily involved over the past couple of years, getting a lot of targets, and Bucky Irving has still thrived across from that usage. And I think the goal line stuff with Sean Tucker last year is a little bit overvalued and overplayed just in terms of Bucky's shoulder injury. Doesn't seem all that fun for a player that is already undersized in like Bucky Irving that also has a shoulder injury to want to run right into a bunch of 300-pound defensive linemen to gain an extra yard or two on the goal line. So Sean Tucker was just kind of the de facto guy for that. But I think if Bucky's healthy, he reclaims that goal line work. And I think that a healthy Bucky Irving is a top 15 fantasy running back with the upside that we saw at the end of 2024, just given the volume. And I'm expecting a bounce back for a lot of the Buccaneers offense as a whole because everybody was injured last year.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You're probably a little bit more optimistic than I am on his real life role. Like I do think there's a real committee there, and I do think the goal line portion of what's going on there in Tampa Bay is a little bit spooky given how wide the splits actually were in the games that Bucky played. Injury definitely makes sense, and I think Bucky is so much better of a runner than both of the other guys in the backfield. But I will also, say while all the reports are like, oh, Kenneth Gainwell's like running a lot of weird routes or whatever. They let Rachaad White walk. Rachaad White got signed for $2 million. It's like they could have just signed him for that. Instead, they went out and grabbed Kenneth Gainwell for $14 million over 2 years. So I'm like, that does feel pretty legit. And I would be surprised if he ends up with fewer than 55, 60 targets this year. So I think the way I look at Bucky is almost like 2024 Aaron Jones in Minnesota, where he quietly finished with 1,400 yards from scrimmage, but his touchdown numbers were kind of few and far between, where he finished with 6-ish, I think, around touchdowns. And I'm like, that to me feels like a good setup for Bucky. Whole lot of yards, definitely the best running back in that backfield for sure. But I'm a little bit worried about the valuable touches in that offense, capping his ceiling a bit.
Would you have taken Henderson or Judkins ahead of Bucky if you were me?
No, I still Bucky and Judkins is close. Henderson's definitely a tier or so behind him, but I like Bucky more than Montgomery. I like Bucky probably around the same as Judkins. So it's not like I dislike him, but when you get to round 4, there's some warts with these running backs.
Sure, of course. And I mean, another running back that I would gladly take here is DeAndre Swift. But I like Bucky Irving's upside and ceiling more than DeAndre Swift, who's just more of a floor play. I could take DeAndre Swift here. I also really like Bashal Tutin. I've been finding myself more into him, but the easy 5th round pick for me here is Tyler Warren. I just think his upside is tremendous. I mean, he was already nearly on pace for 1,000 yards with Daniel Jones last year. Could be due for some positive touchdown regression based on his usage inside of the red zone. He already slightly underperformed expectation with touchdowns last year. Was one of, I believe, 4 or 5 tight ends with 20 plus targets inside the 20. And he was the only one with fewer than 5 touchdowns on that usage. So we could see that increase. We also have Michael Pittman leaving, Alec Pierce, who's recovering from an ankle surgery a few months ago. Josh Downs, while I believe in him a lot, is not a solidified NFL wide receiver 2 option. I mean, Tyler Warren could legitimately lead this team in targets, maybe lead the team in yards, probably lead the team in receiving touchdowns as well. If Alec Pierce is dealing with a little bit of, slower to start kind of situation. I just think in the 5th round as the tight end 4 off the board, 2 rounds after McBride and Bowers and just a couple picks after Loveland. I mean, that to me is easy pickings for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Warren was at the top of my queue. He feels like the most no-brainer, gonna be a really good pick in the 5th round. There's just you have no worry about him. You plug and play, put him in, don't have to worry about him for the rest of the year. I also think people are bored of him. They think he's kind of a boring player. I think there's so much upside with Tyler Warren. I wouldn't be surprised if going into next year he's being drafted as the tight end 2. I don't know what's going to happen this year, but with Michael Pittman gone, he could easily lead this team in targets by a very, very wide shot and be the touchdown guy down there. So yeah, I mean that's feels like a very easy, good pick in the 5th round. And I'll say, man, I really like Bashal Tutin as well, but I am happy that I went running back early so that I don't have to force myself into taking any of the guys here. To me, despite dealing with a little bit of a quad strain right now, Mike Evans to me feels like a phenomenal pick in the 5th round. He's just a dude in the right place at the right time. He's a little bit old, obviously. He's dealt with some injuries over the last couple of years, but they signed him to be the one there. And I probably would have made this pick prior to the Ricky Pearsall injury, but now that Ricky P is gone for the season, I don't know. In what world does Mike Evans not finish this year with a 25% target share in an offense that's going to be, top 8 to top 10 at worst? Brock Purdy's touchdown rate is always so high because Kyle Shanahan is such a good schemer. I don't see why Mike Evans can't score double-digit touchdowns this year, even if his yardage ceiling is a little bit capped. But I think he's a legit wide receiver one, like top 15-ish guy in fantasy this year. Having him as my wide receiver 3 after I kind of like faded the position into the 3rd round feels phenomenal.
You don't have any concerns then about just having Evans and CMC? I know some people out there are kind of like, I don't really like having the same wide receiver 1 and RB1 on the same team. It feels like you're really putting all your ducks in one basket.
Yeah,
you don't have any concerns?
That's not a concern to me if I feel confident that the offense is going to be good. I would shy away from doing that if it was an offense where, like, okay, for instance, actually, this would be a good example. Like, if I had gotten Jonathan Taylor at the 1-6 and Tyler Warren fell to me at the 5-6, I would hesitate on that. I would have to think that through a little bit because I'm less certain that Indy's going to be a really good offense again. But I'm fine doubling down on players if I feel like that offense is going to end up scoring 4 touchdowns a game. I think everyone's going to kind of eat, and it's a rising tide situation.
Sure. I think one of the most interesting stats from the Niners last year, or at least from Kyle Shanahan, is I'm looking at red zone target shares for running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends in the Kyle Shanahan era. Basically, every single year, the wide receiver target share has been in the mid to high 40s, even into the 50%. Last year, they were at 32% for the position group as a whole. It was actually one of the highest years for tight ends, a massive year for running backs, for Christian McCaffrey leading all that. So I think insert Mike Evans into this equation to try to get them back in. It's very clear that they identified that as a need at the wide receiver position by letting Juwan Jennings walk, who I think had 9 touchdowns last year. Yeah. So you put Mike Evans in there, who's just like the red zone guy for the past decade. This year's Devontae Adams, it's a very easy comparison, but it just makes so much sense with Mike Evans. So I love the pick too. And
I'm definitely a little bit bearish on George Kittle's return. I just think, like, I know the reports have been optimistic. This is one of those I'll believe it when I see it. Like, the Achilles very late in the season. And more importantly, he's just old, man. Like, Tucker Kraft with the knee, he would have been my pick here if he didn't get picked right before me. Tucker Kraft, I'm more optimistic. It happened way earlier in the season. It's not the Achilles, it's the ACL, and he's 25 years old. So I feel a lot more optimistic about that than I do with George Kittle. So, I'm not expecting an explosive George Kittle, which again just kind of leads targets and an extremely high target share split up between McCaffrey and Mike Evans. But on that point, I will take my tight end. That is Sam Laporta. He's like the forgotten about, boring veteran attached to one of the best offenses in the NFL. Jared Goff routinely is throwing for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. They have Drew Petzing coming over, which not a super inspiring OC, but he was just in Arizona, knows how to feed his tight ends. And I think Laporta to me is like so clearly the number 2 passing option in this offense past the line of scrimmage. J-Mo really ate when Laporta was out, and his best game came when Amon-Ra St. Brown got hurt as well. So J-Mo's like a great real life field stretcher, but in any sort of like PPR format, he's a pretty tough click for me. And I think Laporta is just such a strong part of this offense where if he just kind of luckily broke into some good touchdown luck next year and he scored 11 touchdowns, I don't think anyone would be surprised. And at that point, he's probably finishing as like the tight end 3 or 4. So, it's not a certain thing. He's not going to be like a PPR monster like McBride, but he's a dude where in this year's crop of tight ends, he's a set it and forget it for me. You put Laporta in your tight end room, like sure, some weeks he's going to give you 8 points. There's a decent amount of weeks he's going to give you 15, 16, and you're going to feel really good about that. And at the end of the year, he's going to be the tight end 7, and you're going to be like, cool, good pick.
Yeah. The double-digit touchdown, I mean, he already did that as a rookie, so I don't think it should surprise anybody that he has that type of upside, especially if, with David Montgomery gone, we expect a lot of the red zone stuff to go over to Jahmyr Gibbs as well. But, if there's a couple of extra plays that would have been a David Montgomery run that just ends up being a little play action pass over to Sam Laporta in the end zone, that could happen as well. You drafted Sam Laporta over Harold Fannin. Is that just offensive related, just pure confidence in the Detroit Lions and not wanting to have a Cleveland Brown?
For sure. Fannin to me, they're very close. I have Laporta ranked higher in a half PPR format. Laporta definitely gets the edge there. Fannin will probably be a target monster in Cleveland, but it's really for me about attaching it to offenses that I feel really secure about. Like if you look at my team right now, the Niners, Kansas City, Baltimore, Philly, Detroit, like I want to be in offenses that are always controlling the clock, always running high numbers of plays, always putting up big statistics, and can get into those shootout games. Whereas like Cleveland, you find yourself on Sundays being like, Like, why would I draft a player on the Cleveland offense? As good as Harold Fannin is, I think he'll be an absolute stud for years to come. I would just rather wait for the quarterback situation to be figured out, invest highly into him like next year when I do feel more confident in the situation. So it's Laporta slightly over Fannin, but Fannin's going to be a stud.
Yeah, nope. I'm on board with that. Zay Flowers just got a 4-year, $140 million extension as we are recording this at this moment.
Shout out me.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
top 3 fantasy season incoming now. They got the contract.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm not loving a lot of the options as we get down into here. Low key, I wouldn't have minded the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack. I'm not usually a person that is drafting a quarterback this early, let alone Joe Burrow, unless I were to have Jamar Chase. So I probably would have pulled that trigger had Burrow been there, but he went one pick before me. So I'm going to continue kind of building out this running back room, obviously because I invested in Chase and Drake London. So I've got Derrick Henry and Bucky Irving. If I could throw Jadarian Price in here and just see what he has from an upside standpoint, first round pick for the Seattle Seahawks, doesn't have, the collegiate receiving profile, doesn't have much of a rushing profile either, but playing behind Jeremiah Love certainly explains a lot of that. But I've been seeing a lot of clips and coach speak that Jadarian Price is going to get involved in the receiving game as well this year, which I think is very, very interesting. So I don't know where we're at with Zach Charbonnet's return. They mentioned about him possibly being back for week 1 or at least in September. I don't know if that's possibly going to happen at all. It seems really, really hopeful for him. That I would just rather lean into the draft capital that they just invested in Jadarian Price. And I do believe that he actually is a good player who is just stuck behind an elite player at Notre Dame that as basically the last potential starting running back, just to add into this running back room that I already have, trying to find other guys while my wide receivers are already solidified. I'll take Jadarian Price here.
Yeah, I don't hate the upside swing. I don't have a strong player take on Jadarian Price. I think for the most part, we should probably let first round draft capital for running back dictate whether or not we think he's going to get opportunity, which should without a doubt be the case. My biggest concern is Charbonnet. Do I think he's going to be back for week 1? I would be shocked. I think he's probably more realistically late October sort of return. It's just he's not even going to be good, but they're going to use him in such an annoying role that when the playoffs roll around and Zach Charbonnet is the one on the goal line, it's going to be such a tough pill to swallow. And that's what makes me nervous on Jadarian Price. But his price is adjusted pretty severely to that. I think at the end of the 6th round, early 7th round to get a first round rookie running back feels like, a definite good high upside gamble to take at this price.
Yep. That's what I was going for. And so at the 7-3, then I already got tight end. Jalen Hurts is there, and I'm pretty interested in taking Jalen Hurts here, but I do like a lot of other.
Would love if you didn't take him here. Would love that.
I kind of figured that you would be wanting the Hurts Devonta Smith stack.
You could obviously take him if you were gonna take him here. Yeah, go for it.
Well, I'm just looking at everything else like Chuba, Ramondre. I could go for another wide receiver. I really do like Mekhi Lemon. I could try to throw my hat into the ring of a Jaguars wide receiver.
Think about this. If you get Mekhi Lemon here and then Jalen Hurts falls to you on the way back, think about that stack. Think about that stack.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I had my heart set on Jalen Hurts here anyway. I knew that you wanted him for the Devonta Smith stack, but I just think we talked about Sean Mannion's offense and the upside that we think it has for Devonta Smith. Jalen Hurts last year had a tremendously horrendous season and was still a top 8 fantasy quarterback on a points per game basis. If we get his rushing volume back, more passing volume as well, I think that we could legitimately see a return to mid to high 3,000 yards, mid 20 touchdowns, and a return to about 600 in double digit touchdowns on the ground like he was in 22-23 as a top 3 fantasy quarterback. I legitimately think that upside is there for him. So I will take Jalen Hurts and sadly make you a little mad.
No, that was a great pick. It was for sure the right pick there. Hurts is it seems like it was a bad year last year, but at the end of the day, it was like there was a couple tush pushes that got stopped on the goal line. And if like 3 more of them converted, we'd be like, yeah, Jalen Hurts, top 5 fantasy quarterback once again. And I think you just kind of have to let that touchdown variance fall back into his favor. And then all of a sudden you're looking at, a top 5 fantasy quarterback once again that you're getting 1 pick before fucking Blake Corum right now. So like that's, that's the way I would look at that. So that was a good pick there. Wish I got him. I, like you, don't feel like there's a running back I'm, super excited to take here. So I think I'd rather keep fading that position and stack wide receiver depth. There are a couple guys that I really like here. I'm actually really interested in taking a shot on the Jacksonville receiving group, and Parker Washington is the guy for me.
Gotcha. Are you like firmly in on the Parker Washington train, or is there still a little bit of the Brian Thomas Jr. 2024 season in the back of your mind?
No, I'm fully out on BTJ. Them two are not very close to me. I think BTJ is a great field stretcher and a downfield playmaker, but it's clear that him and T-Law have like horrendous chemistry, and it's clear that he's a very awkward, clunky fit for Liam Cohen's offense that funnels through the slot in the middle of the field really effectively. And they have 2 like super trustworthy over the middle of the field pass catchers in Myers and Washington that T-Law like really trusts, because he dealt with so many drops throughout the first few years of his career that I think now that he finally has guys that will catch the ball, like I can see them having a really, really high target share. Not to say that my confidence in Parker Washington feels like amazing, because I think this could be a very flat target share across, they have a lot of good pass catchers, probably the deepest receiver room in the NFL when you factor in Travis Hunter. Brenton Strange, I think, is a really underrated pass catcher as well. Liam Cohen's offense always targets the running backs really heavily too. P. Wash to me just feels like a really good fit for Liam Cohen's offense, as well as a dude who really good with the ball in his hands, yak guy, and showed a lot of like downfield playmaking ability down the stretch last year too. So we are absolutely, extrapolating like a very small sample of high level play last year for P. Wash, but P. Wash was also a guy that I really liked coming out of college, Penn State. He reminded me of like a Deebo Samuel light a little bit. So when I think about P. Wash, I'm like, good player, guy I've always liked, now attached to an offense with like a really sound-minded offensive coordinator. If I'm taking a shot, 7th round, I think is the right time to do it. So BTJ to me is going to be so volatile throughout the year, probably 4 to 6 targets per game. We'll have some really big plays, obviously, and some really big spike weeks, but in like a redraft league where I just don't have a lot of confidence in him. So P. Wash is the dude I'm taking a shot on for sure.
If it makes you feel better, P. Wash would have probably been my pick instead of Jalen Hurts at my 703 as well. And anytime as a Penn State alum that we can properly talk these guys up from Penn State, that makes me feel good. So I like it. Especially because BTJ already went. You got almost like a full round discount on BTJ with Parker Washington, and then Jacoby Myers just went right before you at this pick here. So I am definitely coming around to Parker Washington, and the investment level isn't much either. I mean, everybody's scared to draft these Jaguars receivers because nobody knows who it actually is, and everybody's scared to be wrong. But if you are right at 7th round ADP, that's an incredible pick for you. So I love it a lot. And just like that, Parker Washington got. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, that coming. It's coming soon though. He's getting that extension soon. And you know what they say in fantasy, when you've got so many good receivers and weapons, just invest in the QB. So I will double down on that Jacksonville offense. That's one I feel really confident that's going to be very good again. T-Law just turned into a different player when he was confident in his receivers down the stretch last year. Year 2 of Liam Cohen's offense, like Lawrence, I think, is he going to repeat 9 rushing touchdowns? No, but it's clear that that's a very big part of their weapons group that they can use at any point. So he'll probably be an annual 5 touchdown guy with his legs, which is such a nice floor to kind of bring to an offense. So T-Law, I don't think he has the talent of the top tier guys, but I think there's a very real chance he's in the MVP conversation by the end of the year because of the entirety of the situation around him right now. So had him in fantasy last year in my big league in a super flex league. First half of the year was kind of all over the place. Second half of the year, once the weapons group got solidified, he was awesome. So I'm very much in on T-Law this year.
His schedule, I believe, after they have a week 7 bye, from week 8 on, their schedule is tremendous as well. I think both Titans matchups are in the second half, and all of that other stuff is just he could legitimately be another league winner this year. And if his front half schedule, which is where a lot of their tougher first place matchups come from, if he's good through that and he gets you through there, I mean, the confidence for the second half schedule is going to be immaculate for him. I do agree with you. I think that he could legitimately be in MVP conversations through
week
the majority
16
of the
and 17. I mean, they play at Houston week 15, which is obviously a nightmare. But if you can get past that, Dallas in week 16, Washington in week 17. So, like, I mean, you're not going to find a better duo of matchups in the fantasy playoffs than that.
Well, if T-Law is that good, he gets you that first round bye, then you don't even got to worry about that Houston matchup. So.
Fact. That's a bar.
There we go. At the 8-10 here, I'm glad he made it back to me. I'm going to take Chris Godwin, who I think is a very, very easy click in the 8th round. Nice. I mean, Mike Evans is gone. Godwin is being talked about as a return to the slot role with Emeka Egbuka playing the Z, and then we'll either get Jalen McMillan or rookie Ted Hurst as the X receiver. So I think Chris Godwin, who was already really good to end the year last year, remember he came back from an injury, played a couple games, didn't look good, got hurt again, missed another chunk of the year, and then for the final like 5 or 6 games was actually killing it very quietly. So I think that with Mike Evans gone, Egbuka still early on in his career and all the stuff that happened to him last year, was it the injury? Was it Baker's injury? Was it just him inherently? I think Egbuka, while still good, has a lot of other limitations as well that Godwin, I think, can fill in very, very nicely. And if he ends up leading the team in targets, receptions, and yards, I really wouldn't be all that surprised. So I'm very good with Chris Godwin here in the 8th round.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm more optimistic on Godwin than I think a lot of people in the industry, and I think down here is like a really good value pick for him.
Now, for my 9th round, I would have loved Wandale. I would have loved Quentin Johnston as well. These running backs dry up so quickly.
It's bad. Yeah.
I already have my tight end, so I can't like take a shot on Kittle or Gadsden or Kelsey or any of these guys either. I already have Jalen Hurts, so I can't take Dak or Purdy or Nix or any of these guys either. Man, I don't want to take another wide receiver, but I almost feel like I have to, just given the actual value comparing wide receivers with running backs. Aaron Jones, Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, Kenneth Gainwell. I mean, I already have Bucky Irving. I don't know if I want to go for both Buccaneers. That seems like it's limiting my upside there. I think I'm going to go with apparently the second wide receiver in 12 personnel for the Green Bay Packers right now is Jayden Reed. And if that's actually going to be the case in season, that is going to be tremendous for Jayden Reed. And if Golden is playing more of the sacrificial X, the guy clearing out the field for Christian Watson and Jayden Reed in the short to intermediate range, that could be a really, really tremendous thing for Reed. And I was in on him last year. It didn't pan out, obviously, because he got hurt. So I think I'm slowly coming back in on Jayden Reed again as a post type sleeper for me. I get it.
I'm going to take the guy who's like basically just like copy paste outlook for this guy as well, Josh Downs. The guy who's just really good, keeps getting pigeonholed into the slot. I like Downs more than Reed because I think his likelihood of actually playing in 2 wide receiver sets is much higher given what's around him at this point. Like Jayden Reed, I actually do believe that they want Matthew Golden to be the other outside wide receiver. Whether or not that comes to fruition, I don't know. But with Josh Downs, like Michael Pittman gone, Alec Pierce still not practicing with the team during training camp. I don't think they have a choice besides letting Josh Downs basically be a full-time player. I think he's good enough to kind of cement himself as that if he gets the opportunity to be on the field for that stretch. So I like Downs. I like Reed too. They're good players. I actually would have preferred Pittman there. And I really wanted JCM. He was the last guy in my queue. That's a tough one. Who else do we got here?
There's a lot of nothing.
There's a whole lot of nothing. And it makes me so sad, like paying up for quarterback when guys like Matt Stafford are just like sitting here in the 10th round coming off of a 45 touchdown season. What else can we do here? I don't hate like taking a shot on Casey Concepcion. Speaking of Matthew Golden, I don't hate the shot down here either. I probably need a running back. And while I don't really like Rachaad White, I'm going to take Jordan Mason.
All right. So then I get Rachaad White.
Yeah, unenthusiastically, I'll take Jordan Mason on the chance that he just takes over the backfield there, but it's not great.
Yeah, I feel like you need to invest into the Vikings offense if we're still projecting them to be a good team, especially this running back duo. It's an ambiguous backfield, and Aaron Jones is another year older. Jordan Mason is just a really good runner. I feel like you need to invest into that backfield, but I don't want to invest in that backfield.
No, it's tough because like they draft him on Claiborne. Like Jordan Mason's going to catch 19 balls this year. So basically what you need him to do is score like 8 to 10 touchdowns. So your bet is like, is Minnesota a good offense? Like, are they good enough to get Jordan Mason into scoring position all the time? And I'm like, they'll be better for sure. Like there's no question about that with Kyler under center, but will they be good? I think I lean 51-49, yes, because Kevin O'Connell has such a long track record of just being good with pretty much any quarterback outside of JJ McCarthy. So I definitely still lean them being good. But even like last year, Aaron Jones's splits with Jordan Mason, he was seeing a lot more opportunities per game when they were both on the field together. So yeah, sure. Like the reports like, oh, it's Jordan Mason's backfield, but it's another one where I don't know, like, do I trust that to be the case when they actually step on the field? Probably going to be a committee. Who gets the valuable touches? I don't really know. But I think that's also the case with Rachaad White there, where it's like, I personally think JCM's a good runner. I think Rachaad White fits good as the pass catcher there. Like they're a very good yin and yang in terms of strengths and weaknesses. It's also Jaden Daniels' offense. Does he dump the ball off that much? Not really. So it's like, it's hard to be optimistic about any of the guys here in the 10th round.
Yeah, that's what I took Rachaad White because I think it's because of the pass catching upside. That's what I was trying to go for there with White. I mean, he's never had below 40 receptions in a season. He is a teammate of Jaden Daniels as well. So maybe, and if Washington's trying to scale back his scrambling to keep him healthy, I'm wondering if maybe, it's in the back of his head to say, just dump it off to Rachaad White if he's there. And instead of taking off himself and him staying healthy. Don't know if that's actually going to happen, but I'm very curious if that actually does. And I think it's also easier for Rachaad White to get more rushing work than it is to give receiving work to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who has legitimately never been a receiver. I mean, you could look at his collegiate stat lines and it's like he's got like 20 receptions in 6 seasons at college or something like that. And then obviously I think he had 9 last year. So he's nowhere near a receiver, especially not compared to Rachaad White.
For sure. He's a dud in the receiving game, but I would argue that Rachaad White's just a dud in the running game. He's just so inefficient. Sure. It's just like, it's like pointless carries. So I'm curious to see what happens here because, at the end of the day, Washington was like a top 5 scoring offense in Jaden Daniels' rookie year. And it's like whoever gets the bulk of the workload in that backfield is probably going to end up being valuable and far more valuable than wherever they're getting drafted as 10th round picks. So it's like kind of important to figure it out. It's just so hard to have like a super strong take, but my chips are in on JCM for no actual like real hardened reason.
Don't forget they have Katron Allen, Penn State leading rusher on that team as well. So anytime I can shout out my Penn Staters, we're in there. Nick, one last question for you here. We only did 10 rounds here. Obviously, everybody else is going to be drafting, well into the double digits. If we were to continue on doing this, do you have any guys that you would have your eye on that you would have put in your queue for late round double digit targets for some flyer upside? Who are some of those guys for you?
Yeah, good question. I think let me make sure they're not off the board here before I say anything. Okay, so Matthew Golden looks like he was still on the board. Again, he's a guy where I do think they want to give him that first crack at being a starter in 2 wide receiver sets. So he's a guy I'm interested in. Jalen Coker is very interesting to me too. I think he's going to be a relatively high target share guy behind Tet McMillan in Carolina. I think Keaton Mitchell is kind of interesting. His upside is obviously capped there behind Omari and Hampton, but if there's anyone that knows how to use an explosive kind of undersized running back like Keaton Mitchell there, it's Mike McDaniel obviously coming over as the OC. Greg Dulcich has a really late tight end sleeper, just because, the Miami depth chart is, I don't know that I've seen anything like it where there is just nothing. So if Dulcich can be the every down tight end dude, which I think is possible because I want to say his biggest competition is a guy named like Blake Sims right now. I looked at the depth chart this morning. It's guys I've never heard of. He could actually legitimately lead the team in targets this year somehow. 80 targets at the tight end position is not the worst thing you've ever seen. And then I'll throw some love to the Falcons here. Zachariah Branch, Georgia receiver, 3rd round pick for us. Another one where there's like no depth chart competition behind Drake London. It's like Jahan Dotson. It's Olamide Zaccheaus. So, he has a chance to be a guy who's running a ton of routes, really explosive, like under a 4.4 40-yard dash. So if you're looking to add a little bit more spice to this offense and can kind of take that Darnell Mooney like outside deep shot role, don't hate Zach Branch, but those guys are, much later.
That'll do it for today's mock draft. Leave a comment down below which team you like the best or which picks you thought were a little bit questionable. Don't forget to also hit that subscribe button for fantasy analysis all season long. Plus, check out our other content on the channel from Caleb, John, and myself to help you get ready for draft day. Thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.